Next public hearing, which is the BRG high-rise signs. Can we have the staff report, please?
Good evening, Commissioners. In case you're interested, I just put the materials board for this project up on the dais for you to be able to peruse. And Tom Salmon is here this evening from Arrow Sign Company, and he's also available to answer any questions you may have this evening. So the BRG high-rise signs proposal is for 2200 Powell Street. This is for 2 new high-rise signs. Here is the location out on the peninsula. It is just to the east of the Watergate residential and Fairmount West from the freeway. For project overview, this is for 2 new matching high-rise signs. Each sign is 20 feet, almost 21 feet wide and 6 feet tall for about 125 square feet of area. They're illuminated using dimmable white LED lights. There are 3 non-illuminated colors, white, blue, and light blue, and 2 illuminated colors, white and light blue. The reason a major sign permit is needed is because the proposed signs are not consistent with the existing master sign program. The ways in which it is not consistent are because of the sign location on the north side of the building, the inclusion of a logo. The master sign program shows that only lettering is to be included, and the illumination is in 2 colors. The master sign program shows illumination only in white. So here's the comparison with the master sign program. These are the ways in which it's consistent. So it's consistent in its vertical measurement of 6 feet. It's consistent in its horizontal measurement. It's substantially less. In total area, it's consistent. Once again, it's substantially less than half the square footage of the area allowed under the master sign program. The sign face color is consistent. The illumination type is consistent. It's dimmable as required by the master sign program. And the sign construction is of internal white LEDs. The ways in which it's not consistent, which I previously stated, are the illumination color being light blue and white. The logos are included, and the north face of the sign is proposed to be on the eastern corner of the building as opposed to centered. For the project location, we have 2 images of the building. Here's the north side, and here is the south side. It's very hard to see on this projection, but the sign is located right here where my cursor is moving, and on the western corner right there where my cursor is moving. These are the project location where my cursor is moving, and outlined in red are the 2 nearest residential projects. Watergate Residential, which is low, and Pacific Park Plaza, which is a high-rise. Here's a photo that the applicant provided of the building viewed from Pacific Park Plaza. And the sign, as they propose it, would be right there where my cursor is. So in the master sign program, it shows the proposed area is central, and the applicant is proposing that the sign be on that corner there. And staff's recommendation is to move the sign to the other corner to be a little bit further away from the high-rise residential vantage point. So in the conditions of approval, what's included there now to reflect staff recommendation is that the north-facing sign shall be relocated to the western edge of the northern facade. For the sign design, the sign fits well within the context of the building. It fits between the vertical and horizontal elements. The sign itself is a layered design, and that's probably best viewed with materials board you have. There's aluminum framing here, a perforated vinyl, which the light can shine through, a white translucent face behind that, and then the actual LED lights. So there is a buffer. It's not a raw LED light. There's material between that and the actual viewing of the sign. Here are some renderings of the sign in daytime and nighttime. You can see during the day that the sign is dark blue and light blue, and because of those perforations at night, it can shine white and light blue. Here's the renderings again for the daytime. They're a little bit hard to see. They're not very big in this rendering. And at night. So this must conform with major design review, and the findings are that the proposed sign is necessary because of the nature of the establishment in this location. This is the only way for tenants to identify the building here, and there's only one tenant identification high-rise sign allowed per building on 2 faces, so this is consistent with this. So this is appropriate for the location and building type. Secondly, the proposed sign is no larger than is necessary to adequately identify the establishment, or the sign is of extraordinary design significance. And the sign in size is significantly smaller than what's allowed under the existing master sign program. Thirdly, the proposed sign will comply with all the applicable provisions of the plan and regulations, which it does. It's consistent with the high-rise standards, high-rise sign standards, that is. Fourth, the size, materials, colors, graphic style, illumination, and other features of the proposed sign are in keeping with the visual character of the area. Once again, this is a high-rise area, and the signs are consistent with the building design. Fifth, the sign will be readable, taking into account the proportion between different parts of the sign, its visibility from important vantage points, and other relevant design features. So the signs are both readable and proportionate, and the signs are designed to be readable from many vantage points, particularly the freeways to the north and south. And 6, finally, the sign will relate well to the design of the building and be compatible with the architectural features, colors, and textures. The sign is contrasting with the building, so it's clearly visible. And as I discussed before, it's compatible with the architecture of the building. General design review findings include a requirement that it must be consistent with the general plan, and the proposed signs are consistent with adopted sign regulations as required in the general plan. It must be conforming with the Emeryville design guidelines. Here's 5 of them that it conforms with explicitly: unified and harmonious building facades with integrated features, architectural compatibility, consistence with area character, legibility and readability, and visibility. Lastly, the project is of a high design quality that is compatible with and not adversely affect the surrounding area. The signs will be dimmable to reduce impacts, and they're of a design quality that's compatible with the buildings. Staff is recommending approval subject to the conditions, and please let me know if you have any questions, and the applicant is here as well, as I mentioned.
Is there any hour brightness restrictions?
That's not currently included in the conditions of approval.
But we could,
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, something was reached on that art.com project after the problems had come up.
Well, the art.com project sign is allowed to be on 24 hours. It's just, it's dimmed at a certain sunset and sunrise, I believe. There's a certain time frame, and it references a naval website to figure out when sunrise and sunset is and all that sort of thing. We didn't think that this particular sign warranted that level of control. We simply have our standard condition that says if it's deemed to be too bright, they have to dim it until I say it's okay.
Oh, so that's in there then?
Yes, that condition is in there.
Oh, go ahead.
So since we're talking about the art.com sign, do you know if that one is a layered sign, or is it just strictly the pucks and the LED?
The art.com sign is just exposed LEDs and these pucks. This is not that.
Okay. Then the other question I have is, So in the report, it says that there was a condition of approval, I believe, of the master sign program, that all the signs be white with no logo. Do you have any background? I think that predates me being on the planning commission. So do you have any history as to why that was decided at that time, that it'd be only white and no logos?
That predates me as
That
well.
was Miru's project.
The commission wanted to see the logos as they came. They did not want to give a blanket okay on logos. So that
Okay.
was the main reason. They were also skeptical about the combination of colors. So in terms of just wanting, if it was white, then that would be fine. But if they wanted colors, then it would have to come back to you.
It's a little bit, I guess, inaccurate to say that if it's not just white letters, that it's inconsistent with the master sign program. It's not inconsistent. The master sign program just says that if it's not individual white letters, then the planning commission must approve it.
Wants to review that.
Yeah.
So then that leads me to my other question. So the building that has a AAA sign, is that part of that same group of buildings? And is it under that
Yeah, I
program? Did
believe
it go
so.
through
I think that
process?
sign came in after the master sign program was approved, right? And because it's a logo and because it has colors,
Yeah.
it had to be approved by the planning commission, and it was. And it has, I believe it has a similar condition about dimmability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Has there been a sign on this building previously?
Not to my knowledge.
City of Emeryville. That's where our offices used to be,
Oh,
on the
okay.
top floor.
Oh. And what's my other question? There's no sign. Oh, are each of the under the master sign program is each of the? There's 3 buildings on the Watergate Towers, right? Does each of them get 2 signs of the
Yes.
similar type?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
One on each side.
Sarah, could you go back to slide 12 on the thing? And where that's showing, unfortunately, it doesn't show the relation to the Watergate. What I'm concerned with looking at the map or sky view of this is the proximity of that part of the building and Watergate Apartments. It's tremendously a lot closer than if the sign were put where the applicant wants it in relation to Pacific Park Plaza.
Sure. Would you like to go back
Yeah,
to
go to the
this one
sky
where the,
view.
There we go.
Or even just if you can go from the overhead view
Sure.
of, okay, so if you see that,
let's-
go back to where you were just were.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So if you indicate where you want to place it,
The applicant would like to place it.
right, and then
on
move
this
it
side
down
of the
where you
building.
want to place it, see, that's a
Side of
lot
the-
closer to Watergate. Has anyone talked to Watergate about the placement of that sign there?
No, they were sent notifications.
Okay.
And staff's feeling about placing it there was that there's been issues with brightness from signs in the past for Pacific Park Plaza, and
Right.
because people actually live in line with the sign, that it would have a greater impact than a sign that was closer to people where they were living below the sign and weren't at the same vantage
Well,
point.
someone that lives on the 30th floor of that same building, and there's a building that's 8 stories that has Emery Bay Public Market and Guitar Center, that sign illuminates my whole house. And it's 20-some stories below me. So that being up there, in projecting light, I think it's going to put light almost directly on that building. And it's considerably closer than PPP is to that building. And I don't think moving that over in terms of scale is going to make that much of a difference on a dimmable sign. So unless I, could hear a reason why that's a better idea, that's not a staff recommendation I could support.
Well, I believe the applicant is not thrilled with that recommendation either, so they may have
I haven't heard that,
arguments
but I'm just looking at it as
Right.
a resident pragmatic approach, and I think that sign is really close to Watergate.
I'm just saying that they will probably have arguments that you will agree with.
I just have a question about the finding required under section 951612C2 about the proposed sign is necessary because of the nature of the establishment and its location. What is Berkeley Research Group and why do they need a sign?
Well, they're a tenant in that building, and the only way to have a sign for a tenant in that building as a high-rise sign, that's the only option.
Okay.
That's not
There
a-
are ostensibly many tenants in the building, right? So,
That's right, and, you know, I guess it's up to the landlord to decide who gets to have a sign, but it's not unusual for high-rise or mid-rise buildings to have a sign on the top that indicates one of their major tenants. And I believe that the master sign program provides for this. I mean, it does allow for identification signs of major tenants in the buildings at the tops of the buildings.
That's correct.
Any other questions of staff?
There's no motion in the any of the signs, are there?
No, there's nothing changeable. There's no changing lights. There's no movement in any way. It's just that because of how the sign is constructed, it illuminates a different color than the non-illuminated sign color.
So the logo is just white and gray.
Yes, I'll go back to the. Well,
And
I'm going the
blue,
wrong way,
white
I
and
think.
blue.
Okay, so there's the daytime. So it's a dark blue with a light blue. The white in that is a very thin outline. It's not really visible there. There you go. That's a better one. You can kind of see in the top one during the day there is a very thin white
But
outline.
at night, it's blue rather than gray, isn't it?
looks
No, it's
white.
never gray.
The dots.
The dots are a light blue, the same light blue it is during the daytime, and then the BRG color and the 4 dots on the left change to white instead of dark blue.
Okay.
Oh, right.
So if this just said BRG and was that size and those locations, it wouldn't even be in front of us, right?
That is correct. It would be approved on the staff level because it meets all of the other.
Well, if the daytime letters were white.
No, the daytime letters do not need to be white.
Oh, they don't?
And
No.
wouldn't they have to be in the center of the building, not on one of the corners?
That is correct.
That's the other
That's the
change,
other
so moving it to
reason.
the edge of the building.
Would you
rather
like me
than
to go
center.
back to that page that outlines the differences? Would that be useful? No? Okay.
No, that's,
What are the hours of operation of BRG?
Of the business itself?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Does the applicant?
Standard business hours,
Yeah.
8 to 6.
Okay.
So they said, just because they weren't mic'd, standard business hours, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay.
All right, if there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. So if anyone would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Oh, I'm sorry, the applicant. Yes, we'll invite the applicant. All right, we'll leave the public hearing open, but we'll invite the applicant up to address this first.
Yes, please.
I keep getting ahead, trying to move things along.
No, that was it.
That was it?
Yeah, go down, 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 there. Up,
There we
up
go.
there.
Thank you.
Full screen.
It's all yours. I recommend using it.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Tom Salmon. I'm from Arrow Sign Company. First and foremost, I want to thank Sarah. You've been exceptional in your guidance in this application process. You kind of nailed all the questions that we had or were prepared to argue, but I did prepare this proposed sign presentation that elaborates a little bit more on kind of the lighting effect, and I give some examples. So here we go. You've seen this. Obviously, we have the Pantone color per the BRG standards for the letters in the daytime. At night, the LEDs overcome those perforations, and they come out white. You've seen this element also. This is kind of a breakdown of the different elements in the sign. I gave you this detail here to talk about the GE Tetra Max. It's the type of LED that we use in all of our signs. I give a few little details down there at the bottom that show the dimmer switch and the controlling mechanism. Here are 2 examples of kind of what this looks like. The slide or the photo on the left-hand side, you can see that you have REI in the day, and then you have REI at night. This is a pylon sign located in Dublin. The right photo is Stevenson University, gives you a day and a night, give you an idea of how it works. We did explore the location of the sign on the north-facing elevation. As BRG Arrow Sign Company and their design firm were exploring this, we were sensitive to the folks that lived in that lower apartment area. which is one of the reasons we feel strongly that it should be located in the area that it is. You've seen this as part of our other package, and that's basically it. So if you have any questions or about any of the nuts and bolts or means and methods, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. So as it's currently designed as far as the wiring, are the letters on the same, I guess, circuit as the logo, or can they be separated if you wanted to control the dimming of the logo separately from the dimming of the letters?
Currently, each sign runs off a dedicated circuit, so it's dedicated to the sign structure completely. So you dim the letters, the logo dims as well.
Okay, so they're not separately dimmable, the logo and the lettering?
Right.
Okay.
And by extension, they would then be, the logo and the letters would be at the same brightness all of the time?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the public hearing is still open. So if anyone would like to speak on this item, please come forward.
Hello, my name is Lori Carzan. Down, like that? Okay. My name is Lori Carzan. I have been a resident of Pacific Park Plaza for 23 years. I own 2 units on the 25th floor with beautiful views out of the windows that look at these signs. So obviously I'm concerned. I appreciate that many of you were here when we were here last, and that you've been considering this with the kind of care of knowing that we were going to be here, or at least be concerned about it. It sounds to me, and I'm not sure I'm right on this, that during the day it is not illuminated. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's one of our concerns, and that's fine. And the hours of operation were addressed, that's fine. I personally, it's an aesthetic thing, don't have a problem with the design of the logo, but you know, it can get busy out there. The thing that I'm most worried about personally is the white. And I think when you first approved white, it was before the LED technology. And when I looked at that REI sign, that would be really a difficult thing to see. The signs do affect the quality and the quiet enjoyment of our homes. And I have to tell you that this particular week, we've had the major sign off, because it again has malfunctioned, and it is so peaceful. It's one thing to look at it on a screen for a few minutes, or to look at it in a rendering. It's another thing to live across from it every day and every night. The daytime looks fine. I mean, it doesn't bother us if it's not lit, but the nighttime can be an issue, and the brightness level. And I'm not sure that, it sounds like you can modify that later, and so that sounds good. I mean, certainly the size is good. The further away it is from PPP, we like, but of course, if it affects someone else at Watergate, that's an issue too. So please know that we're watching it in terms of just, I don't think there's anything that we can do to stop it. If we could, we would try. We would do whatever we could to try. The less signs, the better. It's a lot of signs going up over there if we have a sign on every single building that's across from us. The AAA sign, you know, it's lower, and I don't know how it affects people that are lower, but it's turned in a way that it's not as difficult for us. This one, I don't know. I don't know about the white. Anyway, I just wanted to come here, express my concern, our concern. We haven't even put it out to the people in the building in a big way, but if we needed to, we would. I just want you to know that we appreciate that you're considering us, but I'm afraid of the white. I really am. It's like a flashlight. Thank you for your time.
Oh.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yes, could anybody who speaks please sign in after you've done so?
Hi, I'm Barb Singleton. I live at Watergate, but not in an apartment that it's affected by this particular sign. And I just had a curious question. When you say you notified Watergate, what did you do exactly? Did you send a notice to everybody in that particular building that's affected by, this light? Or did you just send it to the general manager, to the management company? I'm just curious about how you've told Watergate about it. Thank you.
Would you like us to respond to that?
Please.
Sarah?
The public notifications went out for all agenda items, and they went to all residents that came up in our search database for the building closest, that main large building closest to the proposed site. They should have, yes.
The legal requirement is to notify all property owners within 300 feet, and that includes owners of condominiums. So we notified everyone in Watergate that's within 300 feet of this sign.
Yeah, and actually, I believe it was more than 300 feet, just because I can't separate out the addresses specifically by measurement.
I should also note that although Pacific Park Plaza is considerably farther than 300 feet, we have a kind of an internal rule to notify people in Pacific Park Plaza about any sign on top of any of these buildings. And actually, we did send a notice to every owner in Pacific Park Plaza and every resident.
And on that point, for clarification, Charlie, does the notification go to the owner or the occupant at the address?
Both.
Both. So if you're a renter and you don't own the building, you're still going to get a notice?
In theory, you should.
Yeah, okay.
If it isn't returned by the post office.
Yeah.
Evening. I'm Sebastian. I'm a little bit in a special situation because I work at BRG and I live in Pacific Park Plaza. Actually, the picture that you saw up there was from my personal unit. So I have a foot on each side here, and I take this matter very seriously, and I really appreciate the fact that you are too, because I was on the suffering side of the art.com issue. So a little bit about BRG. First, I'm a big fan of Emeryville. I think the business climate here is great, and I think you guys are doing a great job. BRG is a consulting firm. It started 4 years ago. I'm one of the founders and vice president of operations. The company is 4 years old. It's a success story. It's probably the fastest growing professional services firm in the country. And we work in the legal, accounting, finance world, as well as consulting. And so we're one of the few firms that's based on the East Bay. So I think we're a little bit of an ambassador, and we're as much a professional services firm as a startup, as a tech company. We have 30 offices throughout the country and 4 international locations. We're probably going to open 4 to 6 more international locations this year. So it's very important for us to be able to promote our brand and have identity in those buildings. We're not a city-based firm, so we have a little bit of a disadvantage there. Emeryville's great. Our clients, our experts, our people can come into work very easily, but we have a little bit of an inferiority syndrome being on the East Bay, unfortunately. So that's very important to us. The sign itself was designed in a way to allow me to sleep at night. I'm also, like Lori, a light sleeper. So the sign, first of all, is directional. The light doesn't flash in every direction. If you saw, there's a depth to the way it's constructed. So the light goes out. It's fully dimmable. And the surface area is very small. We're not talking something in the order of magnitude of what art.com is or any other sign in the area, actually. I have the privilege of looking at the Chevys and Hilton Garden sign every time I close my windows at night. This is a much smaller dot in the spec there. We've designed the sign to be as tasteful as we could. And we also think that, although the staff is very well intentioned in trying to push it to the end, I think it's an issue for those residents. It diminishes really the purpose of the sign for us. And to be honest, for me, I'm indifferent. As a resident of PPP, it actually makes no difference. So anyways, just wanted to come out here, say hello, and if you have questions for BRG, I'd be happy to address them. Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Good evening. My name is Paul Gerhardt, and I'm an owner at Pacific Park Plaza. And I don't know if the last person that spoke, are you an owner or a tenant?
Owner, yes.
Okay. I've been an owner well over 22, 23 years. When you talk about us being notified of this sign, I don't know if you're referring to this letter that we got. I got a letter.
That looks like it.
This is my first notification that came a couple days after Thanksgiving, which was just a couple of weeks ago. And it came with a stack of mail and dressed occupant. And I'm very concerned about this sign. You know, I'm strongly opposed to it because it infringes upon my quiet right and enjoyment of my condominium. But I saw a lot of these letters just thrown in the trash can in our recycling barrel because they came after Thanksgiving. I don't see how Charlie can call this notification when it just came 2 weeks ago, and it looks like everything's signed, sealed, and almost delivered before we even find out about it. This is the first time. And now, 2 weeks before Christmas, I'm standing before you, you know, wondering what the hell's going on with the sign? You know, I mean, I'm reading right here that there is no possibility that the proposal may have any significant effect on the environment. That's absolutely not true. It infringes upon the environment. You know, light, daytime, you know, visually what we see is all part of our environment. You know, I see that sign 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I don't know if any of you can really appreciate that, but that's a little bit overwhelming, you know, and you get to make the decision, you know, that affects me and my life. And I really have to tell you strongly how I feel. I really want you not to approve this sign tonight because we just found out about it. I heard there's a dimmer switch. Well, that's great. You know, my car has brakes, you know, but who puts the brake on? So my question is, who does the dimming? I would love to have control of that dimming switch because I'm the one who's looking at the sign. Okay? So I don't see how the residents of PPP have been considered at all in any of this planning stage in this whole beautiful PowerPoint presentation, which I have to compliment somebody on because they did a lot of work, but it certainly doesn't show what I see out of my condominium and hundreds of other residents at PPP that see what they see out of their window.
Thank you.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So please, please do not approve this tonight. Let's have some more discussion on it. Thank you.
Is there time to come up when I know the client time has started, or
Just
whenever?
we'll start timing when you start
Well,
speaking.
I'll try to do this quickly so I can cover a lot of stuff. So I'm an owner and a resident at Pacific Park Plaza and have been for several years. Love the view. I want to also thank you guys for all of your work and service to safeguard our community, our environment, and the city's solvency. Just try to rifle through a lot of these so I make sure I get to cover everything. You know, I'm here because I am concerned about the continued proliferation of the electronic signs in our community. Some of my neighbors and community members, and yourselves as well, have raised a lot of the same questions. You know, I'd like to ensure the commissioners and staff are very mindful of, you know, helping us protect the sanctity of our natural environment. While I was writing some thoughts down the other day, I watched a bird dive into the water and catch some fish. It was a beautiful thing. And so I understand that businesses need signs, but I think that, you know, there is the, you know, being considerate to the right to our quiet enjoyment of our private property. So, you know, I'd like to ask the commissioners to commit themselves to ensuring that we prevent any further light pollution, electronic advertising, and that we're on the lookout for these, you know, types of nuisances. Couple of thoughts that came up. White light, I think by scientific definition, is the brightest. And if I understand correctly, that was what was originally approved. But that's something to think about. You know, if it's going to be white, maybe it does need to be a lot dimmer. That's full spectrum of light. If the business is closed at night, why does the sign need to be on? Are they getting visitors from the ocean that need to see it from the north? And when you think about some traffic lights, you know how if you're not directly in front of a traffic light at a traffic signal, you don't see it? It does have that directional element. Is there a way to recess these lights so that you can't see it from the sides? It would protect all the communities, and maybe you've got to be far enough down the freeway where you can't even see it at all because the light might be recessed. Just some thoughts. You know, we've had past advertising signs and those companies that made promises, but as we know, those promises were violated, or those signs which have a certain permanence didn't necessarily meet all the expectations we had when they were originally approved. So those are some of my thoughts. I don't know if I have a lot more time, but those are the things that I want to kind of try to bring to light and help people think about. And then I don't understand why we want to have so many different colors. You know, I guess there are different colored signs, but seems like other businesses have just one sign, not too many logos. And I hope the owner's not embarrassed to be part of our community here in Emeryville in the East Bay. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing.
I have one other question for Mr. Salmon. Could you talk to us a little bit about the cutoff on the light, about the directional aspect, about how visible it is going to be from different angles, and how much uplighting there's going to be and light pollution going?
Okay. So the letter depth is 5 inches, right? And so what we do is we install the LEDs at the back of that 5-inch depth. So they're mounted against the back inside of the letter. I think that no matter what, you're going to get spillage, you're going to get light. It's, at this point, there isn't a technology that controls and funnels or channels light in one particular direction. I can say that, and I know that white is part of the subject to approval, but anything outside of that, really red is probably one of the most garish colors. Blue, if you went in that direction, it puts off a very hazy appeal or effect. So white is really kind of the most clean lighting source there is in terms of signs for high-rises. Does that answer your question in terms of how to control light?
It was more sort of the range of whether there's any ability for cutoff, like when you have fixtures, architectural fixtures, that you can specify that they cut off so that they're not spilling light over to adjacent properties and not uplighting.
When it comes to LED internally illuminated channel letters, you're going to get light spillage. You're going to pick up the light effect from a variety of different angles, aside from standing directly next to it and the light being blocked by the side of the the channel letter or the aluminum itself. So when it comes to light fixtures that you put on buildings and whatnot, those typically have shrouds. You've got particular bulbs and luminescence that have 90 degrees, 180 degrees, or tube lights that are 360. Not so much in channel letters.
And while you're still up there, I have a question on one of the drawings. So it's the drawing that has the section of the logo and the section of the letters. It's sheet 4. So I guess it's kind of an observation as well as a question. For the logo, the depth of I'll just call it the depth of the channel is 6 inches for the logo, the circles, whereas for the letters, it's 5 inches. It has a 1-inch standoff from the fascia, it looks like, but the channel of the letter is 5 inches deep. So I'm curious as to why that thickness or that depth isn't the same as the depth of the circles.
Sure. If I recall correctly, if you looked at the building in section, there's a top panel that then comes into a reveal and then goes down, and the building itself, the top panel protrudes over 1 additional inch. And so it was very important to the design team in BRG that everything be on the same plane. That's why we had those variations in depth.
Okay. Oh, it is 5 inches? Okay, because at the bottom it said it was 6 inches.
Yeah, because it's flush and there's a...
Got it. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Thank you. So then it's really just, it's actually 5 inches.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a question for the, one of the founders, but if there's a question for you, for anyone else.
I do have a question.
So you don't have to keep going back and forth.
So I just want to make sure I understand this. So when I saw initially when I saw perforated vinyl, I thought that the LED bulbs were perforating through the vinyl, but I think I realize now that's not the case. So the perforations are just to allow the white Lexan face to show through that vinyl, right?
That's correct. The perforation gets overwhelmed or overcome by the intensity of the LED lights, therefore appearing white at night.
Okay.
And I can go back to the slide that gives you examples if that's helpful.
No, that's all right.
That's all the questions I have for AeroSign. Question for one of the founders. Two questions, actually. So the first question is, how many employees do you have in your Emeryville location in this building?
That number changes every day.
So roughly, approximately?
It's more like 120.
Okay. And how did you come up with your brand or logo? Just describe that.
So we've just gone through a rebranding. This is a brand new logo that we actually released about a month ago. We have a history in our firm of being in the litigation area. So we've done a lot of consulting related to litigation or in more adversarial settings. Now we're moving into more just pure consulting services that are in a non-adversarial setting. So we rebranded for that purpose. So that's the evolution of our logo. This is a new logo that we released a month ago. Originally, why do we have our name, carrying the Berkeley name is the firm is founded at the origin from a group of PhD economists that were out of Berkeley. And a lot of people on staff are on the Berkeley faculty, as well as many, many other faculties of Ivy Leagues and other universities throughout the US and the world, actually. So there's a strong academic heritage to the firm. And so Berkeley was an element that we thought would carry that academic heritage, just because of the university. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does.
All right.
All right, so if there are no other questions, I think we should move along to our comments on this so we can get moving. Commissioner Gunkel, do you want to start?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I guess I feel a little conflicted because the master sign program would allow a larger all-white sign, whereas this is a smaller sign that's dimmable and has some, portions of it that are blue that probably aren't as bright. At the same time, I have a hard time finding that any sign of this nature at the top of a high-rise meets this requirement of, it being necessary because of the nature of the establishment and its location. I mean, I think most people, probably all people going to this building either know exactly where it's at or they're looking at their smartphone or their GPS, so they know how to get there. I think the sign being illuminated at night when the business isn't even open sort of proves that it's really, more than anything, an advertisement, basically a billboard. And, I think looking out across the sky, looking out across the bay, seeing illuminated signs at the tops of buildings, basically advertisements floating up out there, sort of, is a little bit of a blight to the view. And I think a lot of cities are starting to avoid having signs at the top, like illuminated signs at the tops of buildings. I know some cities still allow it. Oakland has some signs. I don't think San Francisco allows it. And I think, personally, I think we shouldn't allow it. But unfortunately, this is already, they could go up there and put a sign twice the size of this, white, straight across the top of this, and without our approval at all. So that's where I'm conflicted. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with your comments, with Commissioner Gunkel's comments, excuse me. I'm just having trouble, making the first finding, which is partly why I asked the question of what's the purpose of the logo, what's the history of the brand, how does it relate to the business? And so the first finding that we have to make is the proposed sign is necessary because of the nature of the establishment and its location. I guess I'm troubled with how to confirm that it's necessary to have a sign there for this type of business. And furthermore, why would it need to be lit in the evening? I'm also challenged with that as well. When I think back on the art.com situation, I remember thinking and commenting at that time that their sign being on, the north-facing sign being on at night, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me as to who that sign was directed at, because it's facing the freeway, it's facing cars that are driving southbound, and really there's no real need to look up and see a sign there, even for advertising purposes. And because the business is closed at that time, similar reason, it's just more or less there for advertising. So I'm having trouble making that finding. Yeah, that's all the comments I have.
I'm pretty much on exactly the same page with that. I understand that you could have a white sign with letters and it wouldn't even be in front of us and it would be up there, but I'm really bothered by the sign creep that's happening in town with more and more illuminated signs, and I don't think that they add to the identity of our town. I think that they're distracting, and I think that the Dublin sign was a bad example, because I think that the Dublin corridor is one of the worst examples of over signage and garish signage, and I don't really like that. But in terms of if there's so is there really a sign by right because of this master sign program that was approved? Just a sign can?
I'm not sure if I would exactly say it was by right, but the commission has already, by virtue of the master sign program, approved individual white letter signs on the tops of each of these buildings. So staff would, just approve that administratively if it conformed to the parameters of the master sign program.
Right. Well, in terms of the way the sign looks in relation to what's permitted, I think it's tasteful and it's smaller and it's not offensive, but I hope that it's really dimmable. So.
Well, I lived for 30 plus years in a neighborhood in West Los Angeles called Brentwood, and we had a specific plan for our main boulevard that didn't allow any backlit signs. And when big chains would come in to open a store there, they'd be infuriated. And we just tell them, hey, that's life. Don't want to be here? You don't have to be, but if you're going to be, you have to follow our standards. Well, that isn't the case here, unfortunately. I've sort of proposed backlit, disbarring backlit signs, but I haven't gotten anywhere with it. I think that what they proposed is reasonable, all things considered.
It's pretty much unanimous. We all feel the same way, and what I'm seeing is definitely much better than what they could do according to the master sign program. I would much rather see something that's smaller in scale, tucked in a corner. The logo doesn't bother me, because if we're going to have signs, we might as well have some artistic element to the sign, so it's not just a bunch of white letters sitting on a building. So as it is, I am glad that they could come to us and ask if this is a better idea. I think this is a better idea than what they could just come back tomorrow with and say, fine, commission said, no, we want to put a sign twice the width, all white letters right in the middle of that building, and according to this, we'd have to do that. And I would not like to see that on that building. I think that would be really unattractive. So being that we're kind of in a catch-22, I think this proposal, and I'd have to say as it is, not as with the staff recommendation of relocating it towards the Watergate community, I think that is what I would have to support.
Well, Commissioner Cardoza, I think you might actually have some traction to get somewhere with your opposition to backlit signs, because I think clearly this planning commission is not going to in the future approve any master sign programs like this one. I have exactly the same concerns that have all been voiced here. I'm just conflicted about this for so many reasons, but I also have a hard time making the first finding. But given that, I think that this sign is better than all of the alternatives. So given that there is a sign allowed in this location under the master sign program that's bigger, I'm just struggling with that. Also, I just, in general, I hate the sign findings. I hate them. They're on a collision course with each other. We have to find that the sign is no larger than necessary to adequately identify the establishment, and we have to find that the sign will be readable. So the sign has to be as big as it has to be read, but it can't be any bigger than that. So, I just hate them. It presupposes that there is one perfect size for the sign. And then also, I don't like being presented with I don't like being presented here this late with something that's contradictory to the staff recommendation, but I think it probably is superior. It just sort of looks better on the building. I just, don't like the methodology. So, given that, I guess I'll do the deed and make the motion to approve it as it is.
Can I ask a question of staff? What? So does the master sign program state anything about hours of illumination?
No.
So there's no by right hours of illumination in the master sign program.
Well, illuminated signs are allowed. I think the signs are allowed to be illuminated, right?
24/7 or?
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
it basically means.
I believe the master sign program is silent on the issue.
So I guess what I'm wondering is, do we have the ability to, and you also, if they decided, if we rejected, say, this sign and they went with the all-white sign, would you or we have the ability to, ask that or require that the sign be only illuminated until 8 p.m. and something along those lines?
I don't think we could do that under the master sign program. I think you can probably do that as a condition of this sign if you wished.
As a condition of approval.
All right.
So what were you suggesting?
Well, I'm just wondering, say we made this a condition of approval for this sign, that it only be illuminated till 8 p.m., 9 p.m., something along those lines. If they went back and just tried to follow the master sign program and submit an all-white sign across the building, would they then be allowed to have it illuminated 24/7, or could the same restriction be placed on it by staff?
Question.
I don't believe so. I mean, a master sign program is basically a review by staff to confirm that it conforms to whatever the master sign program says. So if the master sign program, as approved by the commission, says the sign has to turn off at a certain time, then that's what our approval would say. But we don't really have the ability to impose any additional restrictions. Like, for example, at Bay Street, there's a master sign program that says that the wall signs can't be more than, let's say, 75% of the width of the front of each store. And if we looked at a sign and thought it was too big and said it shouldn't be more than 50% the width of the front, well, we can't do that because the Planning Commission has already approved a master sign program that says that it can be 75 feet, 75%.
But we could make that a condition of approval if we approve this sign.
Yes, because the master sign program says that a sign that is not solely individual light letters has to come back to the Planning Commission for a separate approval, for a separate individual approval.
Well, I suggest maybe we ask the applicant to comment on this.
On restricting the hours of the sign?
Yes.
Are you guys opposed to ask if we ask you to turn it off at 9 o'clock?
Or 10 o'clock or whatever?
Yeah.
Hello. So in terms of controlling or mandating a specific time that it turns on or off, I think that the first thing we need to look at is summer versus winter, right? So, you know, when we're at the longest point of the summer, it's getting dark when it's pushing 9 o'clock. On the other hand, in the winter, it's getting dark at the shortest day at you know, just around 5. I think that BRG would like to have some exposure as long as possible at night, and I think that's one of the kind of elegant parts of a sign. I know you may disagree if a sign could be elegant, but we do have the dimmable ability on it, and so, you know, maybe we look at having Sarah or somebody come out, and once the sign's installed, and we can look at a particular range in that dimming sequence as agreeable and go from there. And I would imagine that BRG would, you know, potentially want it turned off by 1 o'clock. I don't know. But in terms of the sign program, it doesn't mandate one way or another. Any comments on that?
Well, the goal here is really to be a good citizen and to be part of the community as a business that's growing, that's viable. So we could go with the plain white 364 square foot sign tomorrow, and we've thought about it. That's not why we're here. So I think we're willing to work with you and your staff to make sure that we're not the kind of brand that you know, wants this sort of bright light look at me. It's more of a understated, if anything. If we're going to err on one side, it's going to be the side we're going to err on. So I don't know how we put that as a condition in the acceptance, but you have my word, and I'm willing to put that in writing that we're going to work with the commission and the staff to make it work.
Well, I don't know where that leaves us.
Can I make a subsequent motion?
By all means.
That we approve it as recommended by staff, but not relocate the north sign to the west, keep it in the east, and that we have the sign turn off at 10 o'clock at night.
Turn off when?
At 10 o'clock at night. That gives them plenty of time during the summer to get.
Turn it on, what, at 6 in the morning?
It's not going to pay them to light it in during the day.
Yeah.
Right, it's not lit during the day.
There's no point lighting it during the day. You're not going to see anything else. So it gives them a dark period of when they could see it. And I think it would be agreeable with the neighbors that they would at least get some peace at night that the sign wouldn't be on. I mean, again, we're in a catch-22. We can have a really bad sign that's lit 24 hours a day, or we could do this sign and put some conditions. This is the only place we can put conditions.
But we can dim it, and
I think it's going to remain dimmed at one level. I don't think we're going to see it go up and down. I think we're going to see it at one level and stay at that level and turn off.
There's currently a condition that it be dimmable, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's also a condition of the master sign program. I've pulled the master sign program up here on my computer.
From my understanding of dimmable, this means that if it's lit and it's too bright, everyone thinks it's bright, you go and dim it. And if you think it's still too bright, you dim it. I don't think it's a dimmer that you increase intensity certain times a day and decrease intensity certain times a day. I think it's just you find what works and you leave it there and you
But I
turn
think
it
it
off.
could be on a schedule like that. I mean, if we wanted to say
yeah.
it dims at 60% at 10 o'clock or something. you know.
Possibly,
Yeah.
yeah. And is it programmable to do that?
It's,
I don't see why not. We'd have to review it with the electrician.
Okay, well, maybe then if you want to say that we dim it 60% at 10 o'clock at night, I'm not opposed to that.
I'd go along with that.
I would second your proposal to have it go off at 10 or maybe 11 o'clock at night. I mean,
Well, do we want
I don't see the purpose of it after that. And
Do we want to pick a time?
I think 11.
11?
I think 11.
Okay, so my motion is to put approve as submitted, the plan, but add a condition that it turns off at 11 o'clock at night.
I think that's more than reasonable, given that there are many other signs in that vicinity that are much worse than this that don't turn off at all, and that they could come back with a far larger sign that they wouldn't have to turn off.
Chair Moss, can I just get a clarification on the motion? Is that the staff recommendation in terms of
that's the applicant's request.
in terms of the location of the
Correct.
sign?
I don't want to see it move towards Watergate.
Yeah. All right.
can I do a straw poll? Like, how does everybody feel about making the time, say, 9 o'clock?
I'd like to know the applicant's intention about whether they're going to say, okay, thanks, we're going to go back and just take the logo off.
Yeah, well,
Have a big giant-
as I mentioned, we're really open to working on this issue. It's also a big investment, and I think we're willing to work with the staff and the commission to dim it or find a good hour and a good percentage. But being forced to shut it off, we're probably going to revert to the original master plan, which is one of the reasons why we actually moved in those towers in the first place. We have 2 of the floors of that top building, 2 of the top floors of that building. So I would probably support going ahead with our plans if we have something like a 10:30, 60% dimming, or whether it's 60 or 65 or 50, I don't know.
And would that be 60% of full volume or 60% of the established volume of what the city believes the intensity of that light should be?
I'm not an expert. I know when you say 60%, sometimes it looks like it's
Of
95%.
100%.
I wouldn't want to put a percentage on because we don't know what that's going to look
Exactly.
like.
That's the
I would
thing.
say that to work with staff to achieve a percentage that is substantially dimmed after whatever time it is.
Or I could say a percentage that whatever the city settles on as the full daytime or first evening intensity, that the light be dimmed 60% of that.
No.
So it's
But in the evening when it's on.
Yeah, we would be willing to work with you on that. They're like billboards, they dim at night. So I think that's just normal. And so we would be really open to do that. And we'll find what that percentage is.
Can I take a stab at fashioning this condition of approval?
Thank you.
What about something like the nighttime brightness of the sign shall be set to the satisfaction of the planning director, or community development director, I'm sorry. And shall, at whatever time we decide, shall be reduced to a brightness approximately 60%, we'll just say approximately 60% of that brightness also to the satisfaction of the community development director.
That sounds fair enough.
Does the staff feel like that's an implementable condition?
So are you saying that at the beginning of the evening, the community development director would establish that the light would be at a certain level, and then after whatever time, let's say 10 o'clock, 10:30, it would be then lowered to 60% of that original?
That's right.
But yeah, the staff would also sort of approve that other reduced level. But I want to be clear that we're looking for that it would be about 60% of the original.
Why don't we just say substantially reduced level?
Substantially reduced. That's fine. Yeah.
I think we're just getting more and more subjective, and there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to be staring at this thing, and I mean, the fact that there hasn't been any kind of input on their part, I mean, or coordination with the, you know, from the, like, any kind of public hearing other than this, where it's basically being decided, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we should have it turn off at 11, but, or that the applicant meet with any interested parties regarding exactly how dim it, you know, it'd be set at 11 o'clock. I don't know.
I just
That
don't
still
see.
makes it subjective, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't see how you can do that without having the sign up there so that people can see
Yeah,
what they're
no, I
looking
know,
at, and
I
then
know.
once you pay to have the sign, you know, that's kind of not workable.
I think it should just turn off at 11.
I would second your motion.
Okay. All right.
What's the motion?
Wait. We don't have a motion on the
No,
floor right
wait,
now.
wait, you were making the motion.
You started
and
to, Commissioner Keller started to make a motion, and it's being amended. So right now, we don't have a motion on the floor.
I would like to make my motion with Commissioner Moss's suggestions on the dimming of the light. So when it first comes on, it's at 80% of full volume of intensity, and then at 11 o'clock at night.
Staff is going to
No,
decide.
staff will determine.
Okay.
Staff
Yeah.
will determine, and then the
And then
second
once
part-
staff is determined and that's set, that's where it stays.
Yes.
No, then they reduce it at X hour.
Right, but those are the two
Staff
intensities. Once that's determined, that's where it stays. So it's at that intensity during these hours, and then 11 o'clock it goes to the lower intensity.
Yes, or actually.
But without actual percentage numbers, just
Correct.
substantially
Correct.
dimmed.
Right.
Okay,
just
with that language.
Substantially reduced brightness.
So that's clear as mud to you guys?
At what time? What time?
11
are-
o'clock.
11 o'clock. Okay.
Are you looking at me? Would you like me
All
to
right.
vote?
I'm just waiting
so
for
I will second your motion.
Okay, this will be a challenge, but we'll do our best, assuming this passes, we'll do our best to implement that direction. At 11 p.m., was that the?
Yes.
And with the location as proposed by the applicant, is that
Yes,
correct?
That's implicit, right. Okay, I think we understand. So that was, let me just make sure I have this. That was moved by Commissioner Keller,
Correct?
seconded by
Me.
Chair Moss. And are we ready to vote? Okay. Commissioner Cardoza?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Gunkel?
I abstain.
Commissioner Keller?
Aye.
Vice Chair Tan?
Aye.
And Chair Moss?
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 abstention. The application is approved. This decision may be appealed to the City Council within 15 days.
I'd like to make a follow-up comment. So I think it was